All right, and welcome to the dumbest, shittiest, most fucked up, disease X riddled podcast that has ever existed since the dawn of humanity.
Yay!
I'm here with my who I usually call on my show is my right hand man, Joey Kimbrough. Say hello, Joey.
Hey, how's it going, fellas?
So we haven't done a show together, which I know is absolutely crazy because a lot of people have been watching us do all the litigation stuff, and Joey's been in there punching just as hard as I have, if not harder in some instances. And he's on the Williams & Williams website under the About section. You can learn more about him as well as some of his cases. So in this show, we're going to be going over a couple things. The first thing we're going to go over is basically Mr. Kimbrough is a Freemason and I am a Scientologist. And what we're going to be doing is there's been some question about me. I mean, I don't really care. I worked for my church for 8 years and I was under tremendous stress and duress, and I've been physically attacked multiple times. I've had a knife pulled on me once. I had chairs thrown at me. I've been spit on a million times. I've had my promotional material set on fire. I've had people tackle tables that I'm trying to work from to tell people about my religious activities. So for me, the bigotry and the hate that I've experienced is actually I'm extremely thankful for, because it's actually translated into me being extremely emotionally stable for all of this litigation. So I actually thank all the people for all the horrible things they've done to me in my past about my religion. But we're going to be going into Joey as well. And the reason why we're doing this is more so on the Freemasonry side, because I have constant communications, private communications, and comments as regards to Freemasonry. And I just, I don't really care to hear it much anymore. I don't really have an opinion either way. Joey has been an extremely important part of my operation, and what I want to do is we're just going to let Joey take the floor, talk about this for a while, and I just want to kind of clear the air on this as best as I can, and then we're also going to talk about Scientology a little bit, and then we're going to get into a court case that Joey actually won, and we're going to break it down for you. And the whole reason behind this is not because I'm trying to defend myself. Me and Joey are not trying to defend ourselves or defend our beliefs or defend our groups. What we're doing is we are going to show the cards. We are going to be transparent. And if you don't like it and you don't appreciate it and you don't like the fact that we are these things or that we do these things, simply unsubscribe, delete, block, leave, never look back, and never speak my name or Joey's name ever again. I don't need your support. I don't want your support. I appreciate the fact that you're here. I appreciate the fact that I have as much love as I have. I appreciate the entire brand was born from my fans. I love my fans. Everything I do is free. I practically worship the ground that my fans walk on, but I will never defend myself for anything that I'm doing. And Joey's in the same boat. So just to be clear, this is not a defensive podcast. This is not a defensive conversation. This is an informative conversation so that you can make an educated decision on if you want to walk out the door and never come back. Okay? I'm going to be very clear about that. Now, with that said,
Hey, yeah, great introduction, man. So I'll say that I had some back and forth as far as joining the Masonic organization about 20 years ago, quite honestly, because if you jump on, I think you and I talked about this before the cameras came on, is, there's not a lot of information out there on Freemasonry, and there's sure as hell not on Scientology. There could be a joke right here, too, by the way. I'll say that.
Oh,
hey,
I know.
There once was a Scientologist and a Masonic.
So
anyway, here we are, man, in my 54 years as of yesterday on this planet, man, I'm more of I want to learn about everything. Satanists, I don't care. And so I went to a couple of preachers that I respected in the community and several other people and said, hey, I'm thinking about joining this fraternity, because that's all it is. What do you think? And it's the resounding message was, just look at the gentleman that you want to join. And that was it for me, man. My grandfather was everything to me. He raised me and so forth. So I thought the world of him. And so that was it. I went into the journey, and there's nothing hidden there. It's not a secret organization. We're about as open as you can be. But I think there's a lot of stuff, and I see it, and I've seen it for a while. And you and I've had conversations. Hell, we're on the phone all the time with each other with the cases we're working. But there's a lot of ignorance. There's a lot of stupidity, and those are two different things. One is, your willingness to want to learn, and the other is you don't know, and you're just,
Exactly.
making some dumbass off the wall comment. So it's more and more prevalent, especially with the Masonic organization, to say that all the judges are, a part of they're all Freemasons and so forth. And I can tell you in Indiana, where I'm at, the 450 members we have in my small lodge, there is not one attorney and there's not one judge. And quite honestly, if that were the truth, don't you think with me being a 20-year member of the Masonic organization, that the cases not only that you and I are working on, but several others that I have for other clients and my personal stuff, I'd be killing it. So I'm having to fight my ass off in these things. One case in particular, I've been in for 5 years, another one for 3 years. So it's just, I think it's the unknown. I think people are fearful, and then when they get in the courts and they get the shit kicked out of them, they got to blame it on something. So why not blame it on the Masonic organization or whatever
Yeah.
that may be? And I'm telling you, you have one in front of you right now, Brandon, that's got 20 years with that organization. So, like we said, any questions are not off the wall, and I'll answer anything I can, man. I mean, we're not trying to hide anything. It's funny to me
Real quick,
that,
what
yeah,
level are you, and what's the maximum level, and how does the maximum level get
yeah.
achieved? Just real quick.
That's great. That's exactly where I was heading. So that's funny,
Okay.
man. So the very entry into the Masonic organization is the Blue Lodge that my grandfather and a lot of other people would call it, and that's your entry level, and that's to them that's as high as you can go, and they'll tell you that there's no higher. But there are a couple other groups that I'll go through. But in the Blue Lodge, you have the entered apprentice degree, you have the fellow craft degree, and you have the master mason degree. So you have work proficiency that you have to do for each of those levels. You have a mentor, you and your mentor, you decide, when you go to the next level, and then you're raised. If you're fast with your proficiency in your work, you could go through the entire thing and be raised well within a year.
Real quick.
Yeah.
So in Scientology, there's check sheets, and you actually have to go through very, very explicit
Yeah.
things that you have to do, and then you go to a supervisor or you go to an area in the organization that checks to make sure that you've completed that step to a certain proficiency level before it's signed off. Is
Mhm.
there anything like that with you guys, or is it more like kind of more vague and open to interpretation by the person who's apprenticing you?
No, it's not vague at all. There's actual specific work that you have to do. So you have to be able to recite some stuff and do a few things, and you and your mentor decide that. If your mentor says to the group that, hey, Joey's ready to move on to the next level, that's all that it takes. But it's between you and your mentor on how proficient you become in each one of those degrees. So yeah, it's pretty structured as well. So then after that, I went to the Scottish Rite, which is in Indianapolis. My version of that is at least my lodge there. It's the Scottish Rite Cathedral, right in downtown Indy. That's where you pick up the next degrees from 4 to 32. So I'm a 32nd degree Master Mason as well through the Scottish Rite. And then after that, and this is the funny one here that not a lot of people know, that the Shriners are a part of the Masonic organization. So that's kind of the next level after the Scottish Rite. So I'm a Shriner as well. We have 22 hospitals around the United States with about a $750 million budgets. We take care of kids, burns and back and stuff. So not a lot of people know that. They just know the little golf carts that ride around and the circuses and all that stuff. But Shriners, they are master masons as well. They hear that and everybody's like, oh, wait a minute, I didn't know. But so, yeah, there are several others that I think have been referred to. Knights Templar, there's a lot of different versions of, but the traditionalists will tell you that the Blue Lodge is as high as you're going to go. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. Honestly, there's not a lot that goes on, but our motto, at least as I see it, is making good men better men. That's what we're all about. Blue Lodge is pretty structured to your Anglo Christianity kind of a thing, and we can kind of talk about there's a little bit of beef between us and the Catholic Church. I'm not going to lie about that, and neither would they. So yeah, there's not a lot of Catholics that are with us. They have their own version, which is the Knights of Columbus. It's very similar to what we do, and it's a group of all Catholics. So I'll share a little story with you. It's kind of funny. There was a guy that got excommunicated from the Catholic Church because he had joined our lodge. So he wanted to come back in. He wanted to come back in because he liked going to another group of Masonic guys and playing cards and so forth. So he came and petitioned us again. I was on that investigating committee with him, and I asked him one question. I said, "Hey, if your priest asked you to bail again, would you?" And he said, "Yeah, I would." And so that was all I needed to know, and that was presented at the lodge, and I can let you guess the rest on whether he got in or not. So, we're pretty firm on who we let in. There's some pretty structured investigations and stuff that go on as well behind the scenes. So
Yeah, tell us about the onboarding process, what you had mentioned prior to the cameras coming on. How does that work, and how has it changed over the years?
yeah, so it's changed. That's a great question. So in the past, you would have had to approach me, 100%, and asked because you knew that I was a master mason. That's changed a little bit, as you and I have talked before. Scientology's numbers have fallen, so has the Masonic organization's numbers. There's a lot of 80-plus-year-olds. So if I go out to my lodge, I'm 54 now, and I'm the young guy. They'll be up my ass. You need to get your ass out here more often. So they're all dying off. The 80-plus-year-olds. And myself and those a few younger than me that need to kind of step up and get things going so that we don't die off completely. But to answer your question, there would be a petition. So I would grab a petition, myself, one other individual would sign it saying, "Hey, Brandon Joe Williams wants to join our lodge. Here's what we know about him." We turn the petition in. It would be read at the next meeting. The master would set up an investigating committee, and there would be three of us. We'd pull you into the lodge, have a conversation, breakfast, whatever, and just find out more about you. And then meanwhile, there'd be people behind the scenes kind of seeing what you're all about, and the one stupid fuck and all that other good stuff. So there'd be a lot of questions, I'm sure, with you, but it'd be all good stuff nonetheless when they found out exactly what you're doing, how you're doing it, and all that good stuff. So it's not tribal, it's not hard. It's just my oldest son is a master mason. He's 10 years younger than you, and my youngest hasn't got there yet, but I'm extremely proud of that. I was there when he was raised to become a master mason, because I know where he's at, where his heart's at, what he would do for our family, what he would do for friends and anybody else for that matter. So yeah, it's a great group of guys, man. When I went to the Scottish Rite, Blue Lodge is one thing, like I said, kind of Anglo-Christian. When you get to the Scottish Rite, kind of all that bullshit goes out the window. I was literally on the stage taking my oath in that capacity with my hand on a Bible. And there was a guy right next to me that had his hand on his Quran. So, it's all about throwing the beliefs out, accepting all, and working with all of mankind to try to make it a better place. So I thought that was kind of cool. I thought that was a good thing, where you kind of see the higher you ascend into the organization, you actually get a good visual overview of. I haven't seen any Scientologists in there, but I'm not going to say that they. Well, I'm not saying that would be on you to want to join. Nobody would care that you're a Scientologist. You have to have a belief. That's one of the things that I think people get really wrong. You saw that in the post. I know you saw it when I was kind of going back and forth with one of your guys, but when you start out with, "Hey, they're a bunch of fucking Satanists," and I'm not there, man, because I'm not a Satanist and I don't know anybody that is. And we all believe in something that's bigger than us, and I'll just tell you, it's called God. So there you go. You got the secret right here first. So yeah, that's it, man. In a nutshell, there's here we go. I mean, we got some.
One of the biggest
one of our
differences
magazines.
between Freemasonry and Scientology is Freemasonry's been around for freaking ever.
Yeah, centuries. Yeah, we
And
were there.
and how much of, I don't want to cut off because I know you're going to show some
Yeah,
things, but how much has changed, and how has because in Scientology there's been a lot of effort, and I mean uh, incomprehensible amount of effort, especially over the last 20 years, that has been done to try to bring all of the original lectures and original books back to their original forms, going through literally thousands and thousands of documents and adjustments and handwritten notes by L. Ron Hubbard in an attempt to try to purify all of the books and all of the lectures to a 25-year project, actually, that was actually completed in 2013. And there's actually a lot of people, even in the church, don't fully realize that there's actually still a tremendous amount of that still occurring for a lot of the upper level auditor training, as well as for the administrative training, as well as for ethics training. And we are still probably going to be, for many, many years to come, still in that same boat of attempting to go through a tremendous amount of information in order to purify and reboot all of the original information, and to remove weird edits that may have happened at editors back in the 50s or 60s and all sorts of craziness. So my question to you is, how has Freemasonry changed, and what does it do to keep itself pure or to correct itself from becoming unpure?
Yeah, I think, we go all the way back to the biblical times with King Hiram and, of course, the building of Solomon's temple and so forth. There's a lot of reference to us way back when. So, hundreds of centuries and centuries is what I'm getting at. So it was more of a practical application, especially when you're building the pyramids and all of that other good stuff, or a castle or whatever that was for one of the old guys. That's where it was more of an application process, where they literally had the entered apprentice, the fellow craft, and the master mason and so forth. That was hands-on. And that's kind of changed, obviously, over the years. We're not brick masons and so forth. Now, there are some, but we're not more hands-on as much as we're kind of all occupation. So it's kind of grown to evolve as we have over the years, too, through the different, time, sessions in time, I guess you would say. So, yeah, we've evolved. A lot of biblical principles that you'll hear throughout the work in the lodge, which is good. I think I've shared some of that, my personal beliefs there, at least Luke 11:45 through 52. You and I talked about that one evening at length, and that's basically where Jesus, if you believe in him, told the Pharisees they're a bunch of shit bags, and then he went right on to the attorneys, and verse 52. So telling him they didn't have the key to knowledge, and pretty much they were a bunch of dirt bags. So I'm with you on that one, big guy. So anyway, we've evolved, I think, over time to be much more inclusive to folks being in the organization. Now, there's a lot of talk back and forth whether women are involved and so forth, and you'll get differing opinions on that, but I can tell you there's not one woman that's a member of my lodge or any lodge that I know of. Now, they are a member of the Eastern Star, that's an organization within the organization where the husbands and wife and so forth are in that portion. But as far as sitting in a lodge meeting, I have not sat in a lodge meeting with a woman. It's still traditionally predominantly male.
Well, that is the definition of the word fraternity, and that's why there's the different word called sorority for that situation.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree. And it's not that women are not loved and beholden, because they definitely are. I mean, they're a part of the Eastern Star. Will come in and fix breakfast with us, and they take care of a lot of the stuff for us in the lodge. But just as far as the fraternal piece of it that you're referring to, yeah, it's strictly men. We haven't gotten there yet to where women are a part of and included in the lodge meetings and so forth. So yeah, that's pretty much it. I was going to tell you, yeah, just kind of jokingly say, yeah, we have our own magazine, and you turn to page 6, and now we got a new judge that's a part of it, and we got a new court that we own, and just being an asshole more than anything. I mean, it's more, you put posts out there at times that I think, good. The last one that I saw is, whether you know it or not, there's a lot of Freemasons that were in the early part of the development of this country. Some names would be George Washington, Ben Franklin, Thomas Jefferson's. A lot of people that were a
That's right.
part of writing that big document that we use a lot of times in the courts, especially. And you put a post on there the other day about your state's constitution, and I think it was paragraph 34 and 5 talked about money specifically, which I loved.
That was a good one,
So
right?
yeah, I like to think that the folks that wrote that were the Masonic guys, the same ones that wrote the federal, the national level, talking about money and knowing the importance of what gold and silver was, and no paper currency, so forth and so on. So it's kind of laughable to me when I see somebody talking about, yeah, the dollar bill, it's got all these Masonic symbols on it, the pyramid, the all-seeing eye. That's horseshit. It's allegory that people have just kind of came up with. The early founding fathers knew the importance. And just because of something got amended throughout time, and now we've got a shittier version of, I mean, don't hang it on that organization, please. It's not at all Masonic in nature. So, yeah, there's that. But yeah, great group of guys. I've never seen anything that would lead me to believe. Now, are there bad apples in it? Yeah, there's no doubt in my mind there probably are. With any big organization that's been around for centuries, you're going to have a couple get through, just like I'm sure you have a couple of shitbags in Scientology, Grant Cardone or Tom Selleck or whomever. I don't know, but I'm sure you have, just like we have, a couple of dudes that you wouldn't be terribly proud of. And what'll happen there is we'll get them out of the organization. I knew of a guy that I used to work with at Chrysler. I was there for a number of years, and he was packed out of the organization. So it does happen, and it was something that had happened in his personal life. His moral compass shifted a little bit. We didn't want to be a part of it, so he was removed from the organization, man. So we feel strongly about that. I mean, if you got picked up for whatever, you name the moral issue, you would be removed from the organization easily, fast.
We have the same thing. There's a court system that's called a committee of evidence that would be convened, and the person would have an opportunity to defend themselves. But if the information was provided into the court or the committee, and it was found to be true, then we have a very similar multi-level excommunication type system where there could be an excommunication that there's different levels of excommunication. There's lower levels, there's upper levels, there's even time periods of excommunication. Someone could be excommunicated for like 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 10 years. And there's an appeal system. So yeah, it's a very similar. I don't know if you have that in Freemasonry, but
Yeah, not that I know of. I think it's pretty cut and dry. They would be removed, and now that doesn't mean that you can't reapply somewhere down the road if things changed in your life or whatever that is. But yeah, I
is there a
don't know.
computer system or anything that would? What if he just went across town to moved to Tennessee and went to a different lodge?
Yeah, there is a computer system that we have that has the membership information in it. So you got a secretary of each lodge, and that secretary will upload the information to the Grand Lodge for us, the Grand Lodge of Indiana. So yeah, it's easy enough to find out the information, to find out if you had been in before, in a part of the background check and stuff too. There's a lot of guys that we have in a lot of positions that can find out information pretty easily. So I don't think that would happen. I'm not saying it can't, but I've never heard of an instance where somebody went across town, across state lines, whatever that is, and was able to get in at all.
That's too funny. So what kind of, you've been involved for 20 years, what kind of financial and time investment is either required or done or typical, or how does that look in terms of what does it take? And then also, I guess part of that question too would be, do people try to speed up the ranks as some sort of like a status thing, or is it it seems like because there's such older guys and it's such a careful membership organization that you wouldn't get a lot of like status hunters. It seems more like that would be more under control. But explain the whole process, the time and financials required to do that and how that works.
There's not a huge draw financially. I think to join you, at least our lodge, and I'm sure it's different in different states, but ours, the membership was like $95 to join. When you get raised to the sublime degree of a Master Mason, you're going to get a huge Bible. I should have brought that in here with me that, it's got the symbol on the front, and you open it up and it'll tell you all the presidents and some of the, prominent people that have been Masons in the past. You'll get your apron, which is a white apron. That's something that I would be buried with potentially, if that's what I so chose to do. And you're just going to get little things like that as you go through and as you're raised. So there's not a ton of monetary commitment at all. Now, time commitment on the front end when you're going through the 3 degrees, that's on you, man. I mean, you can try to get through it fast, and work with your mentor depending on what your schedules are and your aptitude and your ability to be able to decipher and take in information. So, you could get through it 6 months if you wanted to. Or if you're a little slower, your schedule's not permitting, it might take you a year and a half to get through the work to be raised. So it's all on you. Now, after you're raised, once you become a Master Mason, there is no other commitment at all that you ever have to step foot again. Now, that's not the ideal situation, but when you do get in, you're kind of you're better off, and this would be great for you, especially like I'm thinking of Scientology, just your ability to take information. But when you get in, there's what we call chairs, officers of the lodge. So goes all the way from your most basic steward, junior steward, senior steward, all the way up to the master of the lodge. And so there's several officers throughout that are stationed with each one of those. So I came in and I went through the junior steward, senior steward, and I might have went through 1 or 2 more chairs, but then I started getting on the road quite a bit and I didn't have the time. So you'll come in, you'll do the work. So it's like, just picture going to a play or something like that. The degree work has, each one of those officers has a role for each degree. So start to finish, you're looking at a play, if you will, when a candidate's going through and they're learning about all of our organization and stuff through each one of those officers. So, that could be a time-consuming commitment. You're learning the work if you're in each one of those chairs, and then when a degree comes forward for a candidate, you would come in, let's say for the entered apprentice degree, I would be serving in whatever my role is as a senior steward, for instance, for that degree work. So there's a pretty good commitment of time right there, as far as especially if you want to get all the way through the chairs to where you would become a past master is what it's called. So, serving in the lodge it's a 1-year commitment for each one of those chairs. Then if you are the master of the lodge, after that, there's a degree after that that's a past master degree. I have not been all the way through that stuff at all. So just too much of a commitment of time. Now, it's one of those things where I would be definitely interested at this period of my life to jump in and do a lot of that work. There's a lot of floor work. There's a lot of memorization. It's a commitment like no other.
Can you share, or would you be willing to share what kinds of things are studied, or what kinds of things are memorized? Is it more dogmatic? Is it more biblical? Is it more commandment type, lifestyle commandment type? Or what is it that's being? Because we have kind of the similar thing, but a lot of it comes down to when you're becoming an auditor and you're learning how to audit. There are certain rules, like for example, there's the supervisor's code, there's the auditor's code, there's what's called the laws of listing and nulling, which is a type of auditing process, and you have to memorize all of those special laws or codes that are very, very, very. It's like the same thing as memorizing an oath of office for us.
Okay.
There's not a lot of that, but there's some of that, and it's the key spinal cord codes or rules that govern an entire sector that you're getting involved in. But that's only if you're doing professional training. But is there anything you could share more on the kinds of things? And because again, if I don't think, in my mind, I think one of the main reasons why an individual would not have an interest in Freemasonry or Scientology or anything else is because they can't put their finger on what is this thing that I'm going to be getting involved in, and how does it benefit me. Most people are not walking around on the earth trying to figure out how they can benefit others. Mm-hmm. Most people are walking around on this earth trying to figure out how they can be benefited, and then typically once they find something that greatly benefits them at a certain point, they feel like they're living an abundant life. And then at that point is typically when they say, now I really want to give to others and give more to the world, especially as they age, etc. So what is the idea or benefit or information that someone would be going through if they were joining? Well, even the word joining is a bit difficult to use because you can't just walk in and say, I want to sign up. But if someone was onboarding, or whatever the term might be, what kinds of things would they be looking at, and why would someone want to go through all of this investigatory work and committees and meeting people? And it sounds like a nerve-wracking, possibly there would have to be a lot of information there that the person knows is there, and they're willing to go through all of that, what you could consider possible resistance to become a member, in order to make it that far to get onto that information.
Yeah, I think, there's so much unknown that if you didn't know a few people, it would be really, like for me, I use the example of my grandfather, I would be scared shitless. And like any other fraternity, there's a bit of hazing, the fun stuff, the old guys want to crack my nuts kind of thing when I'm coming in. At that time when I went in, I think I was 34. So there's a little bit of the playing around. There's, hey, did you get the goats out back fed? When you're in there and you're a candidate and you're like looking around and these guys are talking like that, of course they're clowning. There's not a bunch of goats or, all of that good stuff. But there's a lot of allegory. I mean, there's some dogma, there's traditions, there's a lot of biblical stuff that go along with the coursework. There's and ultimately the degree work. There's a little bit of uniforms that you kind of wear and stuff like that. That's more in the definitely the higher ranks, when you get into some of the stuff outside the Blue Lodge. But there's very specific stuff that's done with the degree work. It's more geared to learning a lot of lessons and stuff, life lessons. So they're trying to point you to a lot of life lessons, especially biblical life lessons. You learn a lot about a lot of things that happened in the Bible through the degree work, and kind of the whole building process and everything that went along with it. So, I think, that's it's very overwhelming. I would be the first person to tell you that, because there's just a tremendous amount of unknown shit. When I went in as an entered apprentice, I didn't know anything, so I could see where people would get caught up in there's the secret stuff. But when you're going through it and you're with these guys, you're truly putting your trust in them. I mean, there's a lot of blindfolded instances, so you're having to learn to put your trust in a group of guys. There's penalties that, if you say certain things and so forth. So I just there's not a lot of there's too much that I think is unknown. I can see where people would be scared, but knowing the people that you're going to, just like the pastor said, gives you a sense of ease. I can tell you in 20 years, I've never seen anybody that's done anything that I would question morally that's been off at all. So it's kind of the opposite. It's the 180, if you will, of what you typically hear or see on the internet and so forth. So, I mean, I think you've probably seen that from me. But you knew from day one of what I was and all of that stuff. And outside of you and I clowning around with each other, I don't think that you've seen anything that's probably been morally off from me. I would hope not. So, that's how we kind of carry ourselves, definitely in the community at large, but with one another, it's even at a higher level. So, yeah, we're there. I think what I said to you earlier is if it's good, we're there, and if it's bad, we're there trying to help, man. And just sharing some of the examples of, and we can get into that. What I was sharing with you earlier, like at the Holocaust Museum in D.C. There's a lot of reference to us there, and that's a very sad place. I know you said you hadn't been. I'd been. I had the opportunity to take my kids to it, but it's the National Holocaust Museum, pretty close to Smithsonian there in D.C. And there are visuals of train cars, not much bigger than this room, where they had several hundred people packed in, but I just happened to read some reference to the Masonic organization where we were all wearing blue carnations so we would know each other by sight, and we helped get a lot of folks out of a really bad situation there. And I think it's been like that throughout time. So like I was sharing with you, and I'll tell this is not a big deal, but in that instance right there, if I saw you had the light blue carnation in that example there, I might come up to you and say, hey, my great grandmother was 389 years old. Her name was Naphtali, and she was from Center, Indiana. So what I just told you there, if you truly are the guy that I think you are wearing that light blue carnation, is I'm with the Lodge Naphtali 389 in Center, Indiana. So, you would come back to me with something like, yeah, my grandma's name was Howard and she was 98 and, kind of stuff. And so we would know, and then we would have certain words and signs that we might share with one another just to make sure that we vetted each other out and we truly know, who we are, and then we know how we can help, kind of thing. So,
What is
that
the point of that? Does it have to do with like trust, or does it have to do with
it
like
is.
was there
Yeah.
a lot of like infiltration occurring in the organization at one point in time, or was it what is it war based? Like what is it?
A little bit of all the above. It's
Okay.
definitely trust based. So, I don't know if I can trust you with this that I know is super big for me, especially helping people, Jewish families get away from a horrible experience. Because if obviously if I were caught, you were a spy, whatever that might be, that there could be some serious ramifications for that. So yeah, it's more of a trust thing in war. I think I shared an example with you. That was part of the thing at the lodges is where we would have educational component there too. A lot of the old guys would share. And there was one story that stuck with me where, in one of the wars where a POW was in a camp, a POW camp, and there were two Japanese soldiers that came up to him. They saw, through a sign, a word, whatever that was, they knew who he was in that instance. Well, shit, here's two groups of people that can't even communicate, through their language. But so that night, the two guys came back, got this guy, and took him and just pointed to, because he couldn't even communicate, get in this boat essentially, and told him to go upriver, and there were people waiting on him. So you got a lot of stories like that I'm extremely proud of throughout time where the fraternity has helped people get out of really tough situations there, and I think that's where you'll hear stuff like that. There'll be the assumption that well, there's a judge in there. As it's not done me any good to be in there. Now, we're not openly in there saying, hey, Joey's a Mason or anything like that either, but I just think that that's taken way too far and out of context. And quite honestly, if I did know there was a judge there, I'm not so sure that I would even want them to know until it got to a point where I saw something that was a bit morally off, which is what all the fucks do. I mean, they lie, they cheat, they steal, as you well know. And I couldn't imagine a master mason doing any of that stuff if he's wearing the black robe or whatever, of a judge. So if I did see that going on, I would definitely point it out and have a word with him, man. So
So in terms of okay, so let's say what kind of benefits does a person experience? Is it more like so in Scientology we have a thing where if it isn't written, it isn't true. Okay. And everything goes back to the writing. Someone says, oh, L. Ron Hubbard wrote, said blah, 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 blah. That what we do, what we're supposed to do is say, whoa, hold on a second. Where is that? Show it to me right now. I want to see it. And it's like, shut your fucking mouth. Show me in the book where he says that. And then they go, oh, well, and then you can actually get in trouble for something like that, right? Because you're basically manufacturing a lie at that point, right? So that's probably where my obsession with showing everything every time I go on a show or do anything probably comes from.
Makes sense.
So the question I have for you is, because we don't have this sort of like mentor, apprenticeship, older person helping you. We don't have any of that. It's straight to the book. What is written, and then what is the definition of every fucking word of what is written. And if you don't understand it, we're going to look up all the words. We have word clearing technology. We have word clearing technology using the meter. We have all this word clearing. There's actually 9 different methods. I believe there's only 9. There's 9 different methods, or maybe there's 7 or 8, but it's numbered up to 9, and then I think maybe 1 or 2 of them were moved in the 60s or 70s. Anyways, I think there's about 9 of them. There's 9 different entirely separate methods. Some of them use the e-meter, some of them don't. Some are used for illiterate people. So there's all these different methods to word clear the text, and that's basically the entire basis of. But it sounds like with what you have, it's not as much text-based, maybe, and that's my question. It has a strong mentorship, older man, grandfather, fatherly wisdom through life aspect to it. So again, back to my original question, because I'm not so sure it was completely answered, and I want to make sure I get this answered. I think it's very important. Where is the benefit for a new person who might be joining a lodge? Is it more on the written end? Is it more on the wisdomatic end? Is it good for somebody who may not have a father figure? What is it? Where is the benefit that would cause a person to be willing to go through the amount of resistance necessary to become a member?
I think that's the whole clearing thing and the auditing thing with the Scientology church has me interested. I think that's very interesting to me, because we don't. I mean, we go off of, as far as text that you're asking, you're looking at a lot of biblical principles. So there's that. So to answer kind of the question, for me personally, was to get into a group of guys. I think you and I would agree on one thing, if one thing only, that everybody wants to be a part of something. I don't care what it is. I think we're naturally looking for that in life, is to be in part of something that's fucking bigger than us.
Well, one of the reasons why I asked you too is because not having a father, I never had a father.
Right.
I had a stepfather at age 10 who was a farmer who I never had very much in reality with, who raised me like a son, even though we really were polar opposites. He was work hard, sales during the day for home insulation, and then all weekend for farming. Not a lot of words, not a lot to say. Talk is bullshit. It's time to get things done. It's time to feed the world. It's time to sell. It's time to, and he was very, very high morality, high ethics, but not a lot of talking. That's my stepfather, right? And he raised me as if but I was a computer nerd. I was socially awkward. I played guitar in a metal band. I couldn't have been farther from what he tried to instill in me, or what, and we just never saw eye to eye on anything at all. But I respected him tremendously, and he put a very strong work ethic, basically pounded that into me. That's the one thing he just wanted me to have, and he somehow got it, because I was fighting it the whole time. And but in terms of all my younger years, my biological father wasn't around at all, and my mom was a frantic mess, single mother, barely hanging on to her emotions, barely hanging on to her finances. I mean, just a really bad situation. So my question is, it sounds to me like someone who may not have had a father figure,
Mm-hmm.
this might be an excellent thing, because there's
Perfect.
not
Yeah.
a lot of that in the society. If you don't
Yeah.
have a father, what do you do?
Yeah, that's your. It sounds like your background and mine are very, very similar. So, you heard me say grandfather. So I had two sets of grandparents that raised me, and ironically enough, one set was the Catholic faith. So there was the Knights of Columbus thing, and then I had the other set that was over here that was the Anglo kind of Christian stuff, that the Masonic stuff. So yeah, I same thing. And kind of to get back to your point, your original question is, why do people join? For me, it was more of the wisdom aspect, and just joining a group of guys that I know morally had everything put together, regardless of what you see on the internet, and just the people that I knew that were a part of the organization. My grandfather being in the first lot, I knew it was a group for me that I was going to, one, learn a lot of stuff, a lot of life lessons. There's a lot of wisdom there from those folks. Now, being 54, I love going there. It's one of those things where you hate to go to the lodge meetings until you get there, and then when you get there, you learn so much, and you just shut up and listen to the wisdom that's flowing. And you can garner a lot of life lessons, and the group that you're with is going to get you on the straight, and narrow path that you need for whatever situation. So I know I have a lot of guys that I can lean on if need be. I know if something happened to me, God forbid, that my family's going to be well taken care of. That's a big no-no too when the Masonic organization is playing, goofy with a wife or a daughter. That's a big no-no, man. So if I know you're a Master Mason, your wife and daughter are off limits. So there's a lot of that's kind of morally been built into the group that I appreciate, man. So yeah, there's a ton of wisdom there. There's a great group of guys. There's the fraternal aspect. It's about as far from a religion. A lot of times I think it gets mistakenly thrown into that. It's not. There's every faith in there, it seems like. So every faith that believes, I guess I would say. So
So it's
yeah,
just a prerequisite, it's just a belief in something.
a belief in God.
A
Yeah,
belief in God. Okay.
yeah. So that's going to throw people for a wrench, because there's a lot of thought that we don't believe in God, and we point to the supreme, being in the universe and so forth. So however you want to cut it up, it's God, So yeah, I haven't seen anything other than that either. There's very specific questions that you're asked in your last degree, and you better answer in the affirmative. So that's one of them, So yeah.
Okay. So would you say it's more wisdom apprenticeship based? So it's more like human contact based, or would you say it's more written based, or how is the text delivered, or what is it like? Let's say, for example, like if it is biblical, is there like a sheet or a piece of paper or a small booklet where it has like a bunch
Hmm.
of different Bible quotes that may all pertain to a certain thing, such as, let's say, morality, and then you study all of the Bible quotes pertaining to morality, and then there's like a conversation that you're going to have with your apprentice or your intern as regards to those particular Bible quotes and what they mean, or how, what is the, because again, I'm trying to plug it into what I know, and what I know
Hmm.
is basically what we have is we have the text, and then we have what's called a star rate checkout. A star rate checkout is where you're asked for random definitions of words. What is the definition of happening? And then they say, the definition of happening is blah, blah, blah. And then you say, good, use it in a sentence. This is happening because we went to the store. Okay, good. And then we go to the next, and then the person who's doing the star rate checkout just picks random words at random. And let's say, for example, they ask you, okay, what is the definition of corporation? And you say, well, a corporation is a type of duck from Africa. They would say flunk, and they would make you go back, clear up the word corporation in a dictionary using a very specific process, and then you would restudy the entire reference, whatever it is, if it's 16 pages or one page, from the point where the word corporation was found. You'd reread all the way to the end, and then you would go back for another star rate checkout, and then the star rate checkout would resume from where the flunk occurred.
Okay.
And then also, after all the words were checked, they would make you demo out certain ideas to check for competency for concepts. For example, how would you handle a situation where a corporation was, being attacked by something, whatever that question might be? They can make up whatever question they want that has to do with, let's say, okay, so if you have someone in front of you and they're very confused and they're very anxious, what kind of process would you use on them to assist them to feel better about their situation? That's more of a real thing that we would actually ask someone. And then we would make them use little demo kit pieces, like these little things. It'd be like a bunch of different little pieces of wood or little stones or whatever. And they would literally say, well, you have this person, and then you have this other person, and this person's really, really nervous about something. And then I would take this book and I would go up to them and I would say, look at that wall. And then they would direct their attention to the wall, and then I would say, thank you. And then I would say, look at those stairs. And they would look at the stairs, and I would say, thank you. And that you would literally act out, using the little pieces, how you would handle a particular situation. And that's called a star rate checkout. And a lot of the initial stuff that you do and a lot of the initial stuff that you read, everything has to be star rated all the way through. So my question to you is, what is the process? And that's just one of many, many things we do. We also do forced method 4 word clearing, which is where they actually have to go on the e-meter and you have to actually look at the page, and the person who's doing the word clearing will ask you questions. Is there anything on this page you don't understand? Is there anything on this page that doesn't quite make sense to you? Is there anything? And if there's any electrical response, then they jump all over it. Is there anything about this page that doesn't quite add up? You get an electrical response. They would look at you and they'd say, is there anything on this page that doesn't quite add up? And you'd say, yeah, I don't know, man. Maybe right here where he's talking about this thing, he's talking about this particular process that you would use on somebody who's drunk or blah, 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 blah. And then at that point, they would assist you to clean all that up. And then again, you'd have to leave, go back, restudy the entire reference from the point where that mistake or didn't add up was. And then they would come back to complete that method 4 word clearing to the end.
Okay.
So it's a very, 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 very intensive. But I mean, when you do it over and over and over and over and over on a check sheet, it's like it has no significance. It's just like, okay, go here. Okay, that didn't work out. I got to study this. Dictionaries. Okay, I'm back. Okay, boom. And then once you complete, let's say it's a check sheet item, because you can do it as a check sheet item or as a non-check sheet item. If you just need help and you can't figure it out, it's not a check sheet item. But if the check sheet item says method 4 word clearing on this particular reference, they have to go through the whole reference all the way to the end. Certain things has to occur as per method 4 word clearing, and then the word clearer takes a pen and signs attesting to the fact that that particular check sheet item has been completed to full satisfaction.
Okay.
So what is the so in terms of yours, what is the I guess you could say passing standard, or what is we call it a passing standard essentially, but what is the idea that in terms of how that all works in terms of the various points, and how does I guess my curiosity still lies with, how does the written text relate to the wisdom available by having someone who's typically older who has gone through this, and it being fraternal and more of like a fatherly, grandfatherly type wisdom that you may have access to?
The differences I'm starting to see more and more as you speak, because as I said, it's more of a fraternity, not a religion kind of thing, whereas yours is, and that's cool. So there's a lot more written text and so forth. Outside of the 3 degrees that we have, Brandon, there's not a lot of reference text for us to go to and say,
okay.
here's
That's
a book that you can do and fixing fucked up people. So, it's not there. It's 100% wisdom based after that. So me being 54 and had the shit kicked out of me through life, somebody that's 38 like yourself that came in and you're a newly raised brother, I'm going to say, all right, here's how we do it. There's no text. Now, if I showed you our degree work for the entered apprentice, the fellow crafter, the master mason, you wouldn't even know what it says. So it's just tiny little books about yay big, and they're not very thick, but it's got words all over the page, and letters are taken out, and you're looking at it and going, what the fuck is this? So that is what we learn to read and recite the entire book. It's purposely screwed up to where you have to work with your mentor to know exactly what those words are saying. So
Wow.
you're studying with him, and he's telling you, all right, here, and you're maybe you're doing a page a day, or 2 pages a day, and when you get that book memorized to where you can recite it to your mentor 100% with proficiency, then that's all you truly need to move on to the next level. There is not a lot of text in our
So without having the book in front of you at all, you have to be able to say verbally every single word of an entire small book without any help, without any assistance, without any looking, all in one shot?
All in one shot. So that's kind of where it's more of you working with that guy that's got the wisdom and so forth that's before you. He's helping you. It's your first crack at solving problems in that organization, is learning that floor work and learning the degree work that goes into it. So yeah, it's 100% memorization to get from one degree to the next. And
what is the I don't know if you can even tell me, but what is the content of the book? Is the content morality? Is the content ethics? Is the content like parable? Is the content literally meaningless?
No, it's not meaningless. There's a little bit of parable there, but it's more morality. So you're growing as an entered apprentice to a fellow craft, and then master mason. You should have your shit together by the time you memorized all 3 of those books. So there's a lot of morality. It's a great way to put it.
I think I understand. That makes sense to me. Okay, so what you're doing is you're learning. So the books are supplementary. It sounds like to me, just from the little bit you've told me. The primary aspect of benefit would be a tremendous wisdom by somebody who's typically much older than you, depending on your age, as well as they have a very strong desire to assist you to become a better person through male-to-male contact as regards to ethics and morality and the dealings with other people in terms of honest dealings, good faith, etc.
Yeah, you got it. That's it, 100%.
And
then the floor work in the degrees themselves, as you're going through it, the whole lodge comes together, and then you've got all of the guys sitting in the seats, like I said, the stewards and so forth, all the way up to the master. So there's a lot of memorization and floor work, as we call it, there too. When you're there, everything is about you, man. So if you came in and you're an entered apprentice candidate, and then you come in and we schedule a time that we're going to do the degree work, you're learning that little book with you and your mentor. And then when he says Joey's ready to go to the next level, we'll come in and we'll do all of the degree work that relates to that little book that you just learned all about. So they're taking you through the application now with everybody there. And then at the end of that, you've now been approved to go to the next level, which is the fellow craft. You're going to get a new book at that meeting. Here's your new books to start learning this with your mentor and so forth. And when you get that nailed down, same thing. Hey, he's ready to go to the next level. So there'll be a bunch of floor work in there. And it's like I said, the best way to put it, Brandon, for you to kind of comprehend is it's like a play, man. So you'll come in, everybody has their station. They know exactly what they're supposed to do. It's all memorization work, and it's walking you through a journey from start to finish to where you came in as an entered apprentice, and then you left as a master mason, and now you're ready to start helping people as well, and all of that stuff. So yeah,
so the whole point of it is to learn this information and have the wisdom and a comprehension of the information. So comprehension is more important than memorization. So the comprehension comes first, and then the memorization comes second. And then the whole point of it is, once you've been pulled up to this certain level, now you're going to turn around and you're expected to assist others to move up to that level as well. Is that?
There's not a written or implied it's I guess it would be implied more than anything that, yeah, that would be a great thing for you to do, because as they will put out, a lot of the older guys is, what, you're going to get out of this organization what you put into it. That's the nicest way to put it. So if you go through and you never come back again, and quite honestly that happens, it's sad to see, then you're going to get nothing out of this organization whatsoever. So coming in, putting in the work, it's just like life. It's like you and I in lawsuits, man. I mean, we can come in and file a couple papers. I've said this early on to a couple of guys in particular that, fuck, I can create the best documents in the world for it. And if you don't believe these things, then it's not going to do any good. So it's kind of the same way with that organization. You can come in, you can get the degree work, you can say, hey, I'm a master mason now and all that horse shit. But if you don't come to the lodge meetings and you don't put in the work and you don't, try to help somebody else out just like somebody helped me, then what good are you going to be for the general world as it is outside of our organization too? Are you going to kind of drift through it as well? So it's good, I think, to get very active in it. I think that's the best way to do it, especially if you're a new guy coming in, man, because there's a lot of guys there that can give you a lot of wisdom about life, and it corresponds to that fraternity as well, and their journeys and so forth. So yeah, I'd love to say, man, that we have all kinds of books and stuff, but we don't. There's not a lot of text that
Interesting.
It's been written as far as the organization. Now, we've written a hell of a lot of text outside of it, the Constitution and a lot of other documents, so there's a lot of stuff centered around that, but not a lot of stuff like you have, which is very intriguing to me that, you guys have a very structured process. I've seen the Catholic Church is one too that's, got a lot of pomp and circumstance, at least in theirs, and so there is a lot of text in a lot of religious communities. There's just not in ours, man. There's not a lot of text.
That's fascinating because in mine, if I'm teaching you a process, let's say in like in a course room, we call it the academy, and I tell you how to do the process rather than show you the text, I can get in big trouble. Huge trouble. Massive. I can have my certificate stripped and everything.
Oh man.
We call that verbal tech, verbal technology. It's actually forbidden, grossly forbidden. So it's almost literally the opposite of what you're talking about.
It's 100% the opposite.
Yeah, if there could be someone with 30 years of auditing experience, now they can tell their stories, but they can't teach you processes.
Wow.
They can say, oh yeah, I was doing this one process once and this crazy thing happened and blah 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 blah. They could tell you a story of a personal experience. But if they try to explain to you in detail, in a professional capacity, how to run a process, that's a humongous no-no. It's here's the text, word clear the text, what do you not understand, and then let's say they say, well, if I was doing this process and this happened, then what would I do? And you'd say, well, if you were doing that process and that happened, what would you do? That's exactly how a supervisor would handle that question. You'd lob it right back at the guy, because a lot of times the guy doesn't need to be given the answer. He just needs someone to ping pong off his ideas. That's all he needs.
Okay. Yeah.
They're asking you a question and they're acting like they need an answer, but they really don't. All they need is just someone to talk to for a moment. There's a lot of that. Yeah. There's a lot of that, right? So it's well, how could that be? How could that not be? How could it be? We even have a process we run on people asking questions about processes, which is how could it be? How could it not be? How could it be? How could it not be? How could it be? How could it not be? And then all of a sudden, ping, they have a realization about whatever they asked you. So, and that just comes down to batteries. You're ping-ponging the positive and negative on something. Ping-pong, ping-pong. And that causes the energy that's stuck to release and start to flow, right? Same idea as a battery, right? So it's very, very fascinating what you're telling me, because I can see now the value in it, because you have this live human being or man, I guess for a lot of my audience, I'd prefer that term. And that particular individual has an interest in helping you, which is not super common in today's world, which is really cool. and there is this overall structure, and then it's sort of like a father or grandfatherly type figure, and then you have supplementary texts. Are these books confidential?
No, only because, like I said, I could hand you a book, you wouldn't know what the hell it says. So it's really,
I
it's not
see. Okay.
confidential.
So it's coded. It's almost like legalese in itself.
Yeah, it's pretty well coded that you're going to need somebody before you that's going to have knowledge of that's going to be able to help you decode it, let's call it. So that's a good way to put it. Now, as far as like our work in the lodge itself, I mean, in theory, yeah, there's nothing written down that I know of that says, okay, and then you do this and you do this and you do. There's a lot of study that happens throughout the years and working together and so forth on that floor work that in theory, if we had a lodge from the 1800s and a lodge now, the lodge opening and all the way through until closing the lodge that evening should look, in theory, exactly the same. And that in
Oh
itself,
wow.
I think,
Okay.
is so cool because
And
you're
it's
not getting that from
uniform.
a
It's
book.
uniform across the whole country.
Yeah, it should be across the whole world. So
Across the
yeah,
across the whole world. Yes, across the
yeah,
whole world.
so
Yes.
we're in England and well, you name it, we're there. So there's lodges in Europe and stuff. I've been by, I haven't been in them when I was with Rolls. Yeah, so it should be the same opening all the way through to the closing in any lodge across the world. So that's kind of the coolest thing is to say, we work together to learn the work, and it's not came from text. That's the funniest thing where you're saying that it's a 180 from what you have.
Yeah.
Everything is very structured. It's very written out. You follow these procedures. We have the same thing, but it's not written. It's you learn from another individual, which
Yeah.
is definitely different.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
Anything else that you would like to say or add on the subject?
No, I don't think so. I think it's just there needs to be a better understanding. Hopefully, this will help a lot. It's definitely helped me learning about you and your religion. I think that's so freaking cool. But I'm at a different station in life than a lot of people are. I want to learn about other individuals. I mean, there was a point in time where I'm sure you would say the same thing about the Masonic folks that you knew or may not have known. I thought, fuck, all you guys did was believed in UFOs and reincarnation and shit. And now that I know you, it's like, holy shit, these guys are. I mean, if everybody, I can only take context of Scientologists from my newfound friend named Brandon. And if all of you guys are exactly how you are as far as your aptitude for learning and your knowledge levels and shit, wow, man, you got my vote. I mean, Scientologists are badass. I mean, good stuff. And I'm sure it's not just like the same thing with the Masonic organization. I think all of us have the same moral compass and, the willingness to, as I said, make good men better. But there's definitely going to be some differences throughout, in that organization, as big as it is and as long as it's been here. So,
Love
yeah,
it.
man, I've got some good shit for you tonight as far as, that case. And we can go as deep into that thing as you want to. But, yeah, it was my first W. And
Well,
I've
before
had
you hit that,
several
I'm
after
going to
that.
get into
Yeah.
my stuff
Yeah,
for just a
definitely.
moment.
Okay.
I'm not going to take a long time, but I do want to get into mine a little bit because there's been a lot more on the Mason side.
Mm-hmm.
People asking questions and saying weird comments and horrible things. But I might as well go ahead and share on my side as well a
Definitely
little
love
bit.
it.
So I'll go through, and if you have any questions, same thing. If I say anything that doesn't, whatever, or if you have a question, I'll do a screen share real quick, and I'll show some of my certificates. So this here is my certificate as a Class 5 auditor. I was on the internship before COVID shut down a lot of the churches, and this red seal here is a provisional seal, which means that the certificate expired after 1 year. I have to complete. I'm at the very, very end of the internship. The very, very last thing you do on the internship, which I was on for about a year and a half, this one, you have to do what's called a perfect video pass. So the entire auditing session, which could be an hour or 2 hours long, depending on what's going on, or could be much longer, depending on what's going on, is audio taped and videotaped. And if you slur even one word, if you mess up even one command, literally in the entire hour and a half session, if you are a little bit too slow to react, if you're too quick to react, If you so much as even give the slightest bit of facial motions or facial emotional expressions that may evaluate the person that you're auditing, or criticize, or show any sort of shock or disdain for anything they may tell you, the entire video is flunked, and you have to start over from the beginning at your next session. That is the final thing that I have to do in order to get this red seal taken off and then a gold seal placed. Once the gold seal is placed, that is a lifetime certification.
Okay.
This is the date that it was issued, May 3rd, 2018.
Okay.
This is, so the class 4 auditor is the first main level. It's the first level that has an internship. And I was trying to look up, we have the bridge to total freedom that many people have seen, that bridge. I can't find a very good, clear, large photo of it, sadly. I should have maybe grabbed that before I started. But basically it has, on the left-hand side, I believe, it's the training. On the right-hand side is the processing. So the processing is all about the therapy that you can receive from an auditor. And then the training side is this professional, I would consider it almost military level training that you're going to be going through. So as you're going up through this training in what we call the academy, class 4 is the first level where you're like, you have a ton of tools and you can do a whole bunch of stuff. And it's your first like real stable major level that has an internship associated with it. So level 0, level 1, level 2, and level 3 do not have internships. You do a little bit of processing in the course room, but not very much. When you do your first internship at level 4, it's a massive undertaking. I was on the class 4 internship for a year and a half part-time. That one is a different certificate. I don't have that. That one has the gold seal on it that says permanent, I believe. So this is another certificate that I have. This is also that pin that I was showing you a minute ago. I will put it back up on the screen. So this pin here came with that. There's very, very few people on the planet that have ever completed this particular study. This is the entire chronological study of everything that L. Ron Hubbard ever produced, whether it was written or in lecture form, from 1948 all the way through 1961. I want to say May or June maybe of 61, something like that. There's probably, if I had to guess, maybe 20 people on the entire planet that have completed that. It took me 7 years working on it every single day to complete that. And what that is, essentially, I will show you what that study is composed of. That study is composed, let me find it here, do another screen share. So here is Bridge Publications. It's bridgepub.com. Again, just like Freemasonry, people believe that we are some kind of a secret society. You can go on, this is our own private publishing company that we actually have a couple facilities. I think the main one is here in Los Angeles. We have all of our beginning books. These are the books that are usually the first books that people read when they come into Scientology, or the first books that people read if they're interested in the subject of Scientology, but they aren't part of the religion yet and they're just kind of external and they want to see it. You can see that those books can be purchased and sent straight to your home. You can get them also on Amazon. So the idea that our religion is a secret organization is completely asinine. You can buy individual audiobooks. You can tons and tons of lectures that can be purchased and drop shipped straight to your home. Yes, many people don't have CD players anymore, so that's a whole nother conversation. Not too sure what to tell you about that, but that's what we have. So the basics lectures, this is the lecture series that go with those books I showed you earlier. As you can see, all of these lecture packs can be purchased and can be sent to your home. So I went through all of those books that you saw earlier, all of these lectures. I went through, these are the Congress lectures. I went through all of these lectures as well. Each one of these little packs may have anywhere from, let's say, 8 to 10 hours, all the way up to, for the advanced clinical course lectures, the ACC lectures, these may have up to 76, 80, 60 hours of lectures per pack. So I went through all of these as well, and this is the largest body of knowledge currently available in Scientology, to my knowledge, is actually the advanced clinical course lectures. Most everything in Scientology has been translated in, I want to say, 14 to 17 languages, something like that. Because the advanced clinical course lectures, because it's such a large body of information, I believe the last time I checked, it's only available in English. It's one of the only areas in the religion that I believe, if I remember correctly, unless that's changed, it's the only body, it's the largest body of information in Scientology, and it's also the only body currently only available in English.
It's interesting. I've got Dianetics on my audiobooks playlist, and I got maybe 3/4 of the way through it, and it was way over my head as far as, engrams and all of that other good stuff that he references. And quite honestly, I think I only got it because I'd heard from Grant Cardone, he recommended it, or somebody else that I might have listened to at one time. But yeah, it's pretty heavy. I'm assuming all of the other works are probably equally as heavy, but that's
No.
impressive. No, okay,
No. Dianetics was literally written for the medical community.
okay,
It was originally written for doctors, psychiatrists, etc. Right? Then he delivered it to psychiatrists, and he thought they were going to be the happiest people in the world and jump for joy over the fact that there's actually something that that can be done about the situations of people's minds. And instead, he was balked very heavily and realized that this industry that he thought would be very excited about his research was actually very unhappy about the fact that he had written something that cuts into their paychecks.
yeah.
So he went through a massive shift after he wrote Dianetics, and the later writings is actually way different, much easier. And I don't mean like a little bit. I mean 10, 15, 20, 25x simpler, easier, shorter, huge. Like, for example, one of the first books I recommend people read typically is this one right here on the screen, Scientology, The Fundamentals of Thought. It is not a long book. There's even free videos on the website. You can go to Scientology.com, Scientology free courses, tools for life, free Scientology courses. You can go, let's see here. These courses are all completely free. You can do them online. They all have different subjects: marriage and family, handling conflicts, communication. These are all free. And then I would recommend these for anyone who's new and they want to check it out. Or I would recommend the Scientology Fundamentals of Thought is excellent. It's more on the spiritual and philosophy side. Another one that most Scientologists don't usually recommend, and I think it's a real shame, is this one here, self-analysis. So self-analysis actually comes in 3 different types. You can actually get it in paperback, you can get it in hardback, or you can get it in what's called workbook form. The workbook is actually spiral bound. It has this large plastic spiral that goes on this side. Self-analysis is a self-processing book. And you go through the book, and it's very, very gentle. And it has you recall times when you were happy, recall times when you bested someone, recall a time you smelled something delicious. And then there's a little circular disc, and you spin the disc, and it says to recall a specific perception inside of that incident. So, for example, we call it olfactory, which means smell, right? Or sight, or hearing, or color, or forms. What kind of forms were there in the incident? And what you're doing is you're improving your memory, and you're also like, a lot of people have difficulties where they remember things they don't want to remember, and they feel sort of like they are negatively affected by their own mind. By going through the processes and self-analysis, you're sort of like flexing the muscle of memory and putting memory into your own control rather than your memory controlling you beyond your own will. It's a very it's a very like, how do you take control of your mind and your memories from the comfort of your own home without having to contact anyone, involve yourself in a religion, involve yourself in anything at all. Self-analysis is a workbook. The first maybe 30% of the book is a very, very simple underlying written text, very, very easy to read. We're talking maybe fourth grade reading level. And then boom, the remaining 65% of the entire book is all workbook. And you can work the book for months and you will see massive changes in your life. They won't happen overnight necessarily, but by doing it an hour here or an hour there, you can what we call key out, which means let's say you're feeling really bad or you're feeling kind of down or something like that. This book, just pulling it out and running some of the processes on yourself can actually what we call key out those negative emotions or sadnesses or depressions, especially involving incidents that have occurred in your life, such as trauma or loss. And then we have another one called, this is also a workbook that literally you almost never hear of, which is also very sad. This is not the first workbook I would recommend someone to do. I would actually recommend self-analysis, but if someone completes self-analysis and they like and they enjoy the self-processing, this is more powerful, more in-depth self-processing that a person can do. This book is also available in paperback, hardback, as well as spiral bound. This particular book is tons of self-processing, and it's a whole different type of self-processing that is quite powerful. It's been a long time since I looked at it, but I believe going through sympathy, going through people in your life that may have affected your life negatively, it goes into not just memory, but deeper types of self-processing that's very, very effective and can be very life-changing. And in my opinion, if you don't feel comfortable calling into the church or visiting a church or you've heard things or whatever, if you start with just reading this book or doing some of the self-processing available in these books, you don't have to involve yourself. And the full financial commitment is only $20 for self-analysis. That might be for the paperback. It might be $35 or $40 for the workbook. I do recommend that you purchase the workbook, by the way. $20. Oh, no, it says workbook. Yeah. So it is $20 for the workbook. So you're talking $20 for self-analysis, $20 for handbook for pre-clears, $20 for the paperback of Scientology Fundamentals of Thought. The most popular one overall that people read is The Problems of Work, but I know my audience. This one it's not going to have the depth that I think most of my audience or most of the people who watch a show like this would be looking for. Dianetics, I don't necessarily think it's the best choice for a first reader.
Yeah.
Scientology, the Fundamentals of Thought, is available in, I believe, probably 14 to 25 languages. Same thing with self-analysis and handbook for pre-clears. Typically, from my experiences, those are the areas that I would start. Scientology, Fundamentals of Thought for reading, and then if you would like something more, workbooks. And actually, if I had to choose between these, I would almost go so far as to say my number one recommendation for most everyone who wants to learn more about this is self-analysis.
What's the footprint of the Scientology church now? I mean, you and I both have talked about our groups losing folks, are you in majority of your footprint in the United States, or is it abroad as well?
The churches all over the world were closed for a long time during COVID, and it was very, we're talking, I don't know, 10 months, 11 months, 12 months. I don't even know. It seemed like forever. California was a bit longer than everywhere else. It was terrible. I mean, yeah. there was our religion didn't really even exist for a while. I mean, not literally, but I'm just saying, like, literally, you could not go to a church. Did not exist. So I think that is just was not. I don't think in the entire history of the entire religion we've ever closed anything, hardly at all, ever. For even this, we don't close on any holidays. We don't close. So for us to be closed is extremely weird, and then it was for a prolonged period of time. So yeah, I mean, you could say that was the choice of the church. You could say it wasn't. I don't know. I have no idea. I just know that you close any religion or any group for a long period of time, and it's going to be a difficult situation, right? So, in terms of numbers, in terms of everything, so I started in Scientology in 2005. I started in Chicago. I worked for the church in Chicago, in Los Angeles, and in New York City. New York City was my longest stint, 4.5 years. Typically what I did is you see the guys that are on the streets with the little promo handouts, whether it's for a free film or for a free personality test. That's what I did almost the entire 8 years, plus an additional 2 or 3 years of volunteer work where I was on the streets pretty regularly. That's where I had my, like I was telling before, I had a lot of bigotry, a lot of hatred. The tables smashed or knife pulled on me one time in New York City. Guy lighting up a cigar or cigarette and then lighting my promo on fire. I don't think I've ever actually been physically attacked beyond being spit on. I had a guy kind of try to throw a chair at me once, but he ended up kind of pretending like he was going to and then kind of throwing it to the right. A lot of this kind of stuff and getting yelled at, getting told cult and getting told all these things, very, very typical, very, very normal. You know, we did have a period of time in 2007 where we had the whole anonymous thing where Anonymous had targeted us, and we had hundreds of them everywhere and newscasters, and it was a very intense situation where every time I would go to the church, there'd be these waves of individuals in mass saying cult and it's evil. And so, you know, the amount of hatred and bigotry that I've experienced now being where I'm at now in this litigation, I am truly grateful for what I have gone through, because I have gone through things that are so much worse than anything that the court system or the bar cards could ever give me. So I have very tough skin. I would go so far as to say a literal exoskeleton of bone. So that's why, you know, I appear as though I have this very strong, confident demeanor. Well, just like everything else in life, these things don't happen overnight through nothing. This is through cold, hard steel in flames for a very, very large section of my adult life.
I think that's the same thing with the Masonic organization too. There's just so much horse shit and just attacking something you don't understand. It's better off just to be silent. So what is a typical service look like for a Scientology church? Is it like, you know, you were raised in the same state that I'm in right now.
Yes.
So you know what a church service on Sunday at 10 a.m. looks like. You know, everybody comes in, there's some hymnal singing and shit like that. What do you do in a typical service in a Scientology church? Do you come in and you talk about the works of L. Ron Hubbard, or?
God, no. It's the last thing.
Okay.
So, you know, the definition of the word cult does say in it that you have a group of people and they're sort of following a figurehead, right? The term is used so often, and it's used in such a negative light, and I don't think anyone has really taken the time to try to understand that word and that idea is not necessarily the most negative thing in the world. It could be. It depends upon the figurehead's morality and ethical code and what they're trying to teach. If you have someone who is trying to teach people how to, you know, scam people on the internet, and they become a figurehead, then the definition of the word cult in that particular situation would be a negative connotation, right? But the idea that there's a figurehead, and the idea that there's people who look up to a figurehead and revere the teachings of a figurehead. For example, Buddhism is an excellent, Siddhartha Gautama, the Buddha, is an excellent example of a pure definition of the word cult. But the thing is that the word itself being used is not necessarily a negative thing. It's a positive thing. Siddhartha Gautama, I think most people would agree. He is a figurehead, and he's a positive figurehead that has had positive effects on people. For example, Martin Luther King Jr. is an excellent example of a cult. And people say, And people could say, yeah, and people could say, oh, well, that's racist and blah, blah, blah. It's only racist because people have not taken the time to inspect the actual definition of the word cult and remove the emotion from the equation. Mm-hmm. That word has been hijacked by the media and the globalists or whatever you want to call it. And now this word that didn't have this negative connotation before, they probably chose that word because it sounds harsh. Cult. Mm-hmm. It's got a good German harshness to it that you can use that just gives people this idea, oh yeah, it's like when people hear German and they think that the guy's angry. He's not. It just sounds angry. The word cult has this sort of elocution or dialogue to it or whatever, or sound that sounds harsh, right? But the thing is that the word itself, like for example, if you look it up on one of the things that we teach in Scientology that's very, very serious, it's part of the word clearing technology, is that after you look up the word and you use it in sentences and you get a full conceptual understanding of it, you study the derivation of the word. Now, I'm very, very thankful for this website, which is totally free. It's been around for a long time. Just one guy. We have the About section who did this, right? This is written in 2017, right? This is something I've been using through all of my professional training in Scientology since probably, 2010, 2011. I've been using this website. If we go here and we type in the word cult, right? Worship or homage, which is now obsolete, right? A particular form or system of worship, right? Care, labor, cultivation, culture, worship. So we have the word cult, and then we have the word culture. No one believes that the word culture is an evil word.
Right.
We have the word originally tended, cultivated, colony, right? The word was rare after the 17th century, what was revived in mid-19th century with reference to ancient or primitive systems of religious belief and worship, especially the rites and ceremonies employed in such a worship. Extended meaning is devoted attention to a particular person or thing, right? So when you look at the derivation of the word and you study where it comes from and you study what it means, it's a hijacked word. It's like a lot of hijacked words. The definition of the term United States is hijacked. Person is hijacked. We've got a lot of hijacked words. The word cult is also hijacked, right? And the thing is that the idea, Scientology is very figurehead centric, extremely, to the point where, like I said, the texts and the showing of the texts and the clearing of the words of the texts, but there's a tremendous amount of texts as well and lectures as well. The teachings of L. Ron Hubbard and the way that he speaks is very dad joke filled, light, very like cracking, silly dad type jokes. You would say dad humor is a lot of how L. Ron Hubbard speaks, right? And he's very, very like whatever about everything, because you think to yourself, well, if the study of the religion is that dogmatic, where it's like you can't even really talk too much about it on a technical sense and you have to go and clear up all the words of then the teachings itself must be very dogmatic. Couldn't be farther from the truth. It's very fatherly, and it's a lot of the way that L. Ron Hubbard speaks, obviously, having listened to his voice for probably 1,900 hours at least. It's also very influential on the way that I speak. So the way that I speak is sort of like an amalgamation of Dan S. Pena, Dan S. Kennedy, and L. Ron Hubbard. And actually, Dan S. Kennedy and L. Ron Hubbard have extremely similar speaking and public speaking personas.
Interesting.
And everyone loves Kennedy. They think he's got one of the best, just like sitting on the desk, just like, cracking little jokes. But they're not like the kind of jokes that I crack that are extremely crass and have cursing. They're very, slightly antagonistic with a little smirk or kind of dad style. Mm-hmm. He doesn't have this like cursing and this crassness, and it's very clean. It's very dad. It's very a family friendly type. Very Kennedy. It's Dan S. Kennedy. You think Dan S. Kennedy? Boom, you've got L. Ron Hubbard,
the father of marketing.
Yes. So it's an interesting thing because people believe that it's this dogmatic thing and that it's this and that. Yes, every single church has an entire library just for the writings and lectures of L. Ron Hubbard, as well as dictionaries and supplementary material. And ironically enough, there's a Black's Law dictionary in every single church library I've ever been in. I didn't know what that meant all these years until recently. But so it is very so the way that it works is when you come into the church, typically the first thing you're going to do is you're going to do a personality test, an IQ test, and an aptitude test. That's typically what you're going to do. Someone's going to go over your results with you. There's a graph you're going to get, and then typically what they're going to do with you is they're going to do the basic courses, like a lot of the free courses I showed you earlier on the show. There's also a whole bunch of basic courses that are like $50 or $100, and they're usually done in a handful of hours. It's nothing major. And there's course rooms. There's a course room for what's called Success Through Communications. So Success Through Communications is a course where you are training yourself to deliver a communication, deliver a command, or to get an answer to a question. For example, I'll say something innocuous. There's a couple terms that we use in most of our training. Do birds fly? Do fish swim? Are the two main ones that we use. And the reason why is because you don't want to use anything that would cause emotional or when you're auditing someone, you're asking them questions to deliberately what we call re-stimulate charge. So you're asking questions trying to get into trauma or whatever it is you're trying to get into. Whereas the course room, you have to use entirely innocuous, nonsensical things that would never trigger an emotional reaction. You don't want to trigger a person in a course room. That's not the purpose. So we use do birds fly or do fish swim are the two, and they have no meaning. It's just silliness. And you're just trying to get an answer to the question. Yes, no, I don't know. I don't know is an interesting one. There's a lot of training on that too, because do they really not know, or are they just trying to not answer the question? You have to get the question answered. If they really don't know, they are answering the question, you see? Yeah. So we trained this, right? So like, do fish swim? And then the guy's like, I don't know if I want to answer that question. You see how hard that one is? Yeah. Because now it's like, well, wait a second. Does he really not know? But he said, I don't know if I want to answer that question, right? So you got to think, and you got to be quick. You train to quick, like real quick, like right away. I know. He didn't say I don't know to the question. Yeah. He said I don't know if I want to answer that question. Yeah. So what do you have? You don't have an answered question. You have an unanswered question. What do? You repeat the question.
You wouldn't go with why wouldn't you want to answer the question?
If they ask you, well, this is all part of the communication training, right? For example, why do you want me to answer that? Mm-hmm. That could be something that someone asked you in an auditing session, and then you would have to answer that question. Questions are answered. But comments that mean nothing, like, I don't know if I want to answer that question, you say, I understand that. I'm going to ask you the question again. Do fish swim or do birds fly? And then they'd go, yeah, I think they do. And you go, thank you. And then you'd start over from the beginning. Do birds fly? You have a really stupid face, and I just really don't think I want to answer the question because you look like a stupid idiot, and I really shouldn't be answering questions for stupid idiots. Yeah. I understand. I'll repeat the auditing question. Do fish swim? And you have to be friendly, and you can't get mad. If you get mad, it's a flunk, calm, stable. You're not, and also we have something called Q&A, which means going off. This is the bar card special, the bar card shuffle, right? Going off into the weeds. I just really, I have a question. I'm just really, there's a lot of training there. So you deliver a question, and then are they trying to get you off into the weeds? You'll go into the weeds a little bit, but you want to pull it back onto the question. That there's a lot of training there, a lot of professional training on how far into the weeds do you go, what do you address, what do you not address? Do you address it just a little bit and then just haul them back in? It's this whole technology on how do you do all that seamlessly with what we call high ARC, which stands for affinity, reality, and communication. So there's nothing, you can't do anything that would cause the individual to feel like they aren't being listened to, they are being negated, they are being ignored, they are being considered of less value. Anything like that would be a massive flunk. and you handle everything with care, with interest, with upbeat, confident, it's all involving all of that. And then obviously in the upper level training, which you get into in the academy, not in the basic course room in the academy, you're getting into full-blown physical attacks. If they physically attack you, how do you handle that situation? And you get to a point where you literally have to handle physical attacks without doing anything that could further exacerbate the physical attack. So it's like military level. We're talking full-blown military level training when you get up into the academy, right? But when you're down in the basic course room doing, like, let's say, for example, the basic communication course, which is success through communications, it's not, they're not going to get into that. They don't want to get into that. If they start doing that, it's like, whoa, that's for the academy. That's not for this. It's just basic day-to-day business, social, relationship communication training.
What is the intent behind all of this training, Brandon? Is to control the individual, the conversation, or the communication with the individual?
It's to handle and control communication in a friendly way that gets that allows you to get, it's not necessarily just for interrogation. It could be definitely used for interrogation. I'm probably going to be the best for depositions literally that's ever walked the earth because of my training. But it has more to do with the simplicity of greased social interaction. For example, if someone says something to you, one of the parts of the training of success through communication, and then it's much higher level in the academy, is acknowledgments. You look right at them or right in their eyes or whatever, and you acknowledge them in a warm, friendly way. I completely understand that. And they have to feel as though the acknowledgement is relevant to what they said. So if they say, man, I really hate that car. It's red. I don't like red. And you say, wow, what a cool story. That would be a flunk because it's not relevant to what was said, but if they say, God, I really hate that car because I just really don't like the color red. And you say, yeah, the color red, it'd be a lot better if it was green. That could be an acknowledgement, right? And then we train, there's even a part of it that you train how to continue to get more information or to continue on with whatever they're saying. For example, someone could say, I really hate that car, I really hate the color red. And you'd say, oh, that's interesting. Why is that? Or whatever. And you're pulling down that train of thought into additional information, which could be for interrogation purposes. It could be for just a social conversation. It could be for, it's not a specifically trained for any sort of particular aspect of life. It's a generic, whatever you want to use it for, communication, So, and then also elocution is part of the training, right? So for example, you take the book Alice in Wonderland, which is the actual text that we literally use in the course rooms. We don't use really any other text. For a lot of the training, specifically from L. Ron Hubbard, he wants us to use Alice in Wonderland. So we have copies of that book all over the place in the churches, right? So you'll take Alice in Wonderland and you read the line, and then you internalize the line, and then you deliver the line with perfect elocution. So you'll look down. And the reason why Alice in Wonderland is used is because a lot of it is, quote, nonsensical. Again, nonsensical is better for training because you don't pick up a romance novel and you're going to have the guy in tears wanting to jump out the window by the end of the drill. You see, so the idea that Alice in Wonderland is used because it's nonsensical and because it doesn't have a tendency to cause a person to be what we call restimulated or keyed into an incident, right?
That's why you don't use those pleadings. So he could have used nonsensical pleadings in a court case, but everybody gets stimulated when they read those.
Yes.
Typically.
Yes.
Even though they are nonsensical, they still get you fired up.
So you would read a line in like hooray, let's all have tea or something. I don't know. It's typical of what you'll see in Alice in Wonderland. And you internalize that and you look at the person and you go, hello, let's all have tea. And you don't need to smile. It's not like you have to, do this, you know what I mean? But there has to be like good elocution. They have to hear every word if they don't hear a specific word. And then we have sub drills too. So for example, you have a very meek person and they're sitting there and they go, hooray, let's all have tea. and you keep flunking them, and they just keep, like the old grandma or something. We have something called 50-foot TRs, training routines, where they actually have to go on a rooftop, and there's 50 feet, and they have to now yell it across to their person. So we force them to break out of that meekness through 50-foot TRs. And now they have to look at it, and they have to go, hooray, hooray, let's all have tea. And it's like, what? I didn't hear you. And they're sitting there, and they're like sweating because they're so meek, and they're so introverted, and we have to break through that, right? And they just keep doing it and keep doing it. And then once they break through that, then they can come back down to the course room. And then now we go back on the drill they were originally at, and now they're not going to have any issue with the elocution of that particular training routine. So I'm giving you just a teeny, because you have success through communications, then you have another level communication course, and then you have what's in the academy. It's called professional training routines, and then you have upper indoc professional training routines, which is the physical attacks and stuff like that. So those are done in the academy, and that's academy training, professional training versus basic training, right? There's a lot of basic options too. It goes without saying, I'm not going to mince words. Basic courses are very cheap. Academy courses are what people would consider much more expensive. Your typical academy course right now is probably somewhere around $2,500 per course. You might be on an academy course for months. So I don't consider that to be very expensive personally. I think it's the best money I've ever spent in my life. But it all comes down to value versus price. Everything on the planet is value versus price. So if you don't feel that's valuable, you don't feel that you need that, well, then that's considered expensive to you. Whereas if you're a business professional or a sales professional, it's the cheapest $2,500 you ever spent in your entire fucking life. So it's all based off of perception and value. So it just depends on you and what you want. We have basic courses on how to study. The first course I ever did in the Scientology is the Basic Study Manual. And then we have the academy version of that, which is called Student Hat, which is $2,500, I believe. And that course is quite a beefy one. That one. So on the training side of the bridge breakdown that has all the different levels, the first thing you do on the training side is what's called Student Hat. Then the next thing you do is the professional training routines, the upper level communication course. Then you do the upper indoc professional TRs, which is the physical attacks and physical handling. Then you do what's called pro metering, which is where the first area where you start to use the device, the e-meter, and you start to learn about the basics of electricity, the basics of voltage versus amperes versus ohms, and how all that works. Wow. And there's even videos, there's even full training videos that you'll watch that break down electricity and ohms and resistors and all this kind of stuff, and computer technology and circuit boards. And then at that point, after you do pro metering, you start to begin the actual levels of auditor training. It starts with level 0, and then level 1, and then level 2, and then level 3, and then level 4 is your first plateau level. And then at level 4 is the first available internship that you can do. If you don't do the internship, then you get what you saw on my certificate, the red provisional sticker, and your certificate expires after 1 year. Once you complete the internship, then you get a gold seal, and you are certified permanently for life. And then from there, after class 4, they don't teach you trauma. It isn't until class 5. Class 5 is when trauma is introduced. There's a ton of stuff you can do without getting into trauma. And there's a ton of stuff that you should do with someone before you get into trauma. Diving into trauma is for a lot of people a bit much. It's too much. And in the self-auditing books, such as Self-Analysis and Handbook for Pre-Clears, you're not going to be getting into a lot of trauma, but the things that you're going to be getting into will reduce the restimulative value of trauma, because it's going to be reducing all of the aspects that the trauma sits on top of, right? So when you start getting at class 5, which is the cert that I showed you, that's when you start getting into trauma, which is called New Era Dianetics. And then at class 6, which is called the St. Hill Special Briefing course, that's the first level where you start to get into a massive historical study. We don't like the word historical. It's considered what we call a technical degrade. And the reason why is because it degrades the value of the information. So as much as I try not to use that word, the correct word would be more philosophical. So the whole philosophical background as to how all this stuff works and how the mind works, including even like the axioms, which is like the laws of the mind. It's a massive course. I mean, you're talking 2 years full time, 45 hours a week probably. The people who complete class 6, and then there's an internship associated with class 6, they're called the Duke of the Auditor Elite. And it's a very, very esteemed position. And sort of like what you described in the Freemasonry, the St. Hill Special Briefing course is undergoing massive changes and a lot of, like what I was telling you, where figuring out and going back to the roots and removing edits that were never supposed to be there. There's this huge thing that's going on with that right now, and also a massive translations project. The St. Hill Special Briefing course has not been available for anyone to do, I believe, since around 2011. And prior to that, there wasn't that many people who were doing it. So that area of our religion is all the old timer guys that are getting quite old, that are looking at retirement, and they're looking at, passing away and leaving on a legacy to their family. So we have that in the class 6s and the class 8s and that kind of thing. Class 8 is even crazier. But that you're starting to see a lot of those guys, which are all old timers, that a lot of the guys that did the St. Hill Special Briefing course, they did it in the 90s, mid to late 90s, or early to mid 2000s. So my mother actually did the St. Hill Special Briefing course in the mid 2000s, late 2000s. So the course will be re-released in the next several years. It might take another several years, because the amount of book material, so there's these things called tech vols or tech volumes, and you could fill up half a whole bookshelf with just these red books, and it's the chronological every single thing that was ever issued on the subject of auditing and processing and processes, all the way back from 1948, 1947, and then chronologically all the way up through Mr. Hubbard's passing in 1986. So it's these huge red tomes that go by Roman numeral 1, 2, 3, 4, and I believe it goes all the way up to like 20 or something. All of those are being fully redesigned, taken back to their roots, closely examined. Every single page is being closely examined for purity. And then there's 445 hours of lectures specifically just for class 6 that are also, the last time they were available on cassette tape. The quality was very poor. So they're increasing the quality and then also translating all of those lectures as well into 15, 16, 17 languages. And they're probably going to put them on CDs as well. It's a massive undertaking. It's been going on for many, many, many years, and it'll probably continue to go on for many years. So our religion is still very new. The church, the actual religion itself was founded in 1951. And the research line and the technology line continued all the way up through 1984. 1984 is when L. Ron Hubbard published the Way to Happiness book, which is a common sense guide for better living. And I believe 1984 was also the year that he developed a very special type of auditing that I'm not going to get into. It's more advanced, but I don't think there was a lot developed after 84. But literally all the way from 51 to 84, there was tremendous amount of research and discovery that was occurring all during that time period. In fact,
was he the one that founded it, L. Ron Hubbard?
Yes.
Okay.
And everything in all the books is from him, and all the research is from him. And he was the driving force, and he was off the lines of the church, running the church for many, many years, and just trying. Basically, the way L. Ron Hubbard operated was he just wanted to, and again, a lot of that translates into what I'm doing. He wanted to research and then do lectures and publish all of the research findings. Research, publish, research, publish. He tried really hard to not get pulled into the administrative operation of the church. And he had a lot of people helping him, including Mary Sue, his wife, who was very, very integral on that side of the equation. So Mary Sue ran pretty much the day-to-day operations, and all he wanted was, all I want to do is research and publish, and research and publish, and research and publish, and research. Like that was his focus. And if he got pulled down into the administration of the organization, he would do whatever it took as fast as possible to get up and out of that and back into research and publish. And that's what occurred all the way from 51 until 84.
Do you guys have a belief system similar to any type of a traditional church outside of the studies and the text and so forth?
No, we don't even really have. So the idea of what we call these dynamics, which are concentric circles of survival, starting with yourself, moving out to family and children, and then moving to groups, and then moving to mankind, and then so on and so forth. The eighth dynamic, which is so each circle has a border to it. So it's a border. Seventh dynamic is spirituality. The eighth dynamic, it has no borders. It's like from there on is the eighth dynamic. We call
enlightenment or something. Is that what it's called?
It's the supreme being. And to be honest with you, there is not a lot of information that is ever published about the eighth dynamic. And I've literally read and listened to more than probably almost anyone walking the earth on the religion, literally. There's probably literally less than 10 people on the planet that have ever voraciously consumed as much content in the religion as I have. And there is almost nothing published on the subject.
So what do you believe? If you died today, what would happen to Brandon Joe Williams?
So the way what we teach, and one of the main things that we operate on, is this operation of interiorization and exteriorization. So the being does not have any mass, energy, or location or space. You just take up whatever space you decide and whatever space you don't. It's kind of like when you have a big success in life and you feel big, and then you have a big failure and you feel small. Mm-hmm. You got to think, is a chicken the egg theory, right? So are you feeling small because you had this experience, or are you having this experience because you felt small? It's kind of an interesting conversation, right? But basically, that you as the what L. Ron Hubbard defines you as a spiritual being is the awareness of awareness unit. So it's a unit that is aware that it is aware. That is the definition of what we would consider the definition of a spirit. Okay. The primary functionality of a awareness of awareness unit is very, very similar to the way dolphins communicate, which is what he talks about in the advanced clinical course lectures. So, for example, it's sort of this vibrational pinging. It's kind of like when you're in a car, especially on a motorcycle. People on a motorcycle really will understand this, but in a car, and you just feel something weird going on over here, and you just there's a weird like danger bells that go off, and there's no think about it, like what perception causes you to perceive something like that, such as danger, or such as someone just had an argument in a room or whatever. It's because the you as an awareness of awareness unit, according to my religious beliefs, you're constantly vibrating and pinging the environment. Mm-hmm. And this pinging, this dolphin type pinging that's occurring, is feeding you information subconsciously or consciously all the time. And it's actually, as far as I'm concerned, there's a lot of perceptions, more than the 5 people are particularly trained on. And as far as I'm concerned, the primary perception is this sort of vibrational pinging that occurs all the time. And in my own opinion, from studying male to female relationships and feminine versus masculine energy, for many, that's one of the main reasons why I even joined Scientology. I would almost go so far as to say, what they would call the feminine divine or whatever, they're masters in this. They're masters in pinging for a person's intent. Women just, women feel ill and they feel gross and they don't even know why. And it's because they're pinging intent. Well, this is from my own research. They're pinging intent and they're pinging congruence, meaning the guy says he's your friend. The guy says he loves you when he really doesn't. And he just wants sex or whatever. There's this incongruency. And that ew, oh my God, is the woman picking up the ping on the incongruency between the person's intent and the person's actions. I believe that what we would call feminine energy or the feminine divine is the most amazing area to study how all spiritual beings actually perceive their environment with this dolphin style pinging that occurs in this communication line that happens into the environment. It's absolutely fascinating. It's something that most men have shut off at a young age because we as men, especially in Indiana and stuff like that, we're trained throughout our lives that we're not really allowed to be emotional creatures. We're not allowed to contact, and I think that what happens is by shutting all of that off, it also shuts off some of that ping awareness as well. And that's why, women just feel things and they just act on their feelings and they're just like, whoa, because they have a much stronger muscle to experience. They may not understand the things that they're feeling. That's kind of the disconnect too. Men are like, well, why do you feel this way? And a lot of women can't answer that question because they just pick up this ping and they just and they just act based off of this thing that they're pinging, but they can't evaluate the information that's coming in on their perception lines. They just know there's something not right here. I'm out. That's Intuition. It. End of story, right? Yep. And that's in my opinion, from all my research, that's the feminine intuition, and that's the whole idea behind how spiritual beings communicate. So back to your question, because I didn't forget your question. It's a long answer. That awareness unit, of which in Scientology we can exteriorize from the body if need be. There's dirty exteriorization, clean exteriorization. There's a lot of information about this. Drug use can give you out of body experiences that can be clean or dirty. Dirty out of body experiences can utterly destroy someone's life. If you've ever met someone who had a bad trip and they've been kind of messed up ever since, chances are they had a dirty exteriorization, and that is something that we can address in Scientology using special processes. It's the number one thing that can mess up someone's case. We call it a case. The most powerful way to fuck someone up is to do a dirty exteriorization. And that's why Scientology is not particularly drug friendly. There's a lot of information about drugs aren't good, you shouldn't be doing drugs, and what they do to the person. And when you start getting into things like hallucinogenics and LSD, which are some of the worst ones according to my religious beliefs, and the reason why is because it creates a dirty exteriorization situation that can mar and destroy the person's quality of life forever. So there's also clean exteriorization. I'm not going to, while my own personal beliefs, religious beliefs, do not look upon drugs and drug use as something positive, I'm not going to turn around and also judge others. I do realize and acknowledge there's been a lot of people that I've talked to myself personally, dozens, that have had good exteriorization experiences through drug use or whatever. I'm not here to play judge. I'm not here to do anything like that. So I have no interest in doing that. I have no interest in doing that in any area of my life at all. It's not my place. So I'm not trying to get into morality or ethics involving this. This is just purely just sharing and, like I said, giving information as regards to these subjects so that, again, I'm not defending myself and neither are you, so that people can make an educated decision to see if they want to continue to follow what we're doing or if they want to leave. And that's a completely acceptable choice. And I support anyone watching this for whatever choice they may choose. But I don't want to hear about it. That's the thing. If you start telling me about it, I'm going to make the choice for you. Okay.
Right. Yeah.
So back to the question. So the spiritual entity, this awareness of awareness unit that can be exteriorized from the body, as far as my religion is concerned, moves to another body, and there's the in between live section where there can be total chaos. One of the big areas of chaos from a lot of the people that I've audited, and again, auditing is something that is extremely protected. I would never, ever, ever divulge anyone's personal information or name or anything. I can be very, 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 very vague in this area, but divulging any personal information that has ever been told to me would definitely equal a very, very high level of the most serious level of excommunication from my religion. It's not a low tolerance. It's a zero, absolute zero, instantaneous death type situation to do such a grievous crime. But to be very, very vague, I have experienced many things myself, as well as audited many people on what's called the between lives area. And what is experienced, the most confusing and upsetting area about that from all the things that I've experienced is this sense of timelessness and loss. It's this combination of very, very heavy loss, because you've lost everything. You've lost your body, your friends, your family, your bicycle, your motorcycle, your money. Everything's gone, technically. So it's like the most serious, it's like the worst love you've ever lost in your entire life times 100. And then combine that with a sense of complete timelessness, because time is relative to physical objects moving, and a lot of time is regulated by the body as well. So there's this extreme loss combined with extreme timelessness. And it causes a lot of people, from my experience, to want to forget. It's this almost begging to forget. It's this desperation. Please, God, let me forget, because this is so. It's sort of like when you see like a love story of a guy who goes out and starts drinking very, very heavily. I think my favorite video game of all time, Disco Elysium. It's a story about a guy who is a detective, and he went through a breakup, and the game starts with him unconscious and naked on a hotel floor that he destroyed, and he wakes up and he doesn't even know his own name. He doesn't even know his own identity. He has actually drunk himself into complete amnesia. And throughout the video game, you have to solve a murder that's occurred, and at the same time, you're trying to find out who you are, and you start to realize throughout the game that the entire basis of this character's depression, which is way beyond depression, he's literally completely suicidal. He has multiple areas of his mind that speaks to him. He's basically completely insane. There's even a tie called the horrific necktie that begins to speak to you and tell you to do drugs and alcohol to solve your problems. And it's all based off of a woman that he loved. And just talking about it is very intense. It's a really, really good game, man. I'm telling you, it's incredible, but it's hard to get through. Yeah, it's hard to get through, right? And the in between lives area is from my experience, very, very intense version of that. And there's this forgetter. There, people run to forget. They run to forget. They want to forget. It's this desperate dash to forget. And you hear about run towards the light and these kind of things. And so there's this whole thing that occurs where people want to forget, and then they do forget, and then they're reborn and they don't remember. And that is essentially the Scientology idea. But you also have child prodigies, children who play piano like they're 60-year-old maestros. What happened was that particular individual did not want to forget about how to play the piano in between lives, and somehow there was no forgetter mechanism or forgetter behavior, and that individual retained that information into his next lifetime.
We would call that the veil.
Yeah.
So there was a veil, that was removed in that instance. Are you aware of any personal awareness of your transition between lives?
I I have gone through a lot of things in my own personal auditing as a what we call a pre-clear, but you know, whatever you want to call it.
Hmm.
Yeah, I've experienced a ton of things involving a lot of this. In my opinion, one of the most fascinating things about auditing, especially when you're an auditor as well, is how, and this might sound kind of crazy, but how insignificant it all becomes after spending all your days and all your hours, just to give an idea of the time commitment required to achieve what I've achieved. I've probably been in a Church of Scientology 45 to 50 hours a week, sometimes 60 hours a week, every week of the year from 2005, maybe mid to late 2005, all the way to 2020. And that's also not required. That's not a requirement. It's just like you said. It's how much you want to invest. You know, I wanted to invest all my time. I couldn't even. I mean, you know, I guess I'm a very centric person. If I'm doing something, I'm all in, and I was definitely all in. So you know, I've experienced a lot of things and done. You know, I don't even imagine how many thousands of hours of auditing I've received and how many thousands of hours I've delivered. But going through some between lives or past lifetime or killed someone or raped someone or mass murder or it just becomes so insignificant at a certain point, because at first it's very electrifying.
Yeah.
At first it's like, holy shit balls. At first you don't believe it. Then all of a sudden, now you're around women and you don't have anxiety anymore. You've had anxiety around women your whole life. And you go, holy shit, there's something to this. And then you keep going. But then after 10, 15 years of that, it just becomes insignificant. It's like, oh yeah, in between lives, blah, blah. It's like eating a ham sandwich or doing some paperwork at a certain point, which is also really cool in another respect, because trauma and all these things, they just become like paperwork. Yeah. I mean, trauma just doesn't have any effect at all, really. It just becomes so insignificant because you're addressing it as the auditor on one side of the equation, and then you're also addressing it as the auditee, I guess you could say. We don't use that term, but I'm thinking it more on the legal side of things and the way the terminology is in the legal world. You just go back and forth and back and forth and back and forth, and you get to a certain point where it just doesn't have any significance at all whatsoever, you know.
So you haven't seen any visions of you being a great warrior or something like that?
Yeah.
Because I would guess that about you, honestly.
Yeah.
Not that you're fucking Napoleon or anything like that reincarnate, but there's something there. You can tell just the way you attack things and, you know, take it on.
Yeah, there's you if you did want to experience auditing, typically the first thing you would do is you would contact the church. I do recommend you read a couple books first. I just think it's better. I just think it's a better introduction just to get yourself a little bit of information before diving into something like that. But if you wanted to get straight onto something like that, typically what someone would do is they'd do what's called a life repair. It's I believe, typically $2,500 for 12 and a half hours of auditing, typically, depending on where you're at. And what you're going to do is you're going to go through an interview process. They're going to ask you, what areas in your life do you have a hard time with? What things are you worried about? And they're going to build a little program, a little very custom, very gentle auditing program to assist you. And the as far as I remember, it's been a long time since I've been on major training. The product of a life repair is someone who really realizes that Scientology is a workable science. So, you know, that is something that some people do when they first start. Typically, it's not the first thing someone does. And the reason why is because of the emotional and financial part of it, you know. Just to be very, very clear, because I know it's going to be something that people are curious about, because there's a lot of information online about this. I have probably spent, in all the years, I've done almost everything you can do in Scientology, all the way up to a certain level, which I'm not going to get into because it's just complicated and it requires a lot of explanation. I've probably spent over $300,000 on my religion. I'm very, 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 very happy to have spent that much. I would very, very gladly spend many, many millions if that's what it would have required me to do during that time period. I wanted everything, and I was willing to do anything to do everything. So that is the reality of the situation. There's two sides of the financial part of the religion. You have the donation, which is things like the donation arms are things like volunteer ministers, the Citizens Commission on Human Rights, which is about abolishing psychiatric malpractice. We have and the drugging of children. That's a big hot one for us. If you want to know, the enemy of Scientology is psychiatry, specifically the psychiatric abuses, mainly involving the drugging of people and the drugging of children and the over medication of that industry. That would be, if you want to know what is the polar opposite of a Scientologist, it would be a psychiatrist over medicating a client. That would be that drives Scientologists into usually quite a bit of upset and rage. That is the most upsetting thing to a Scientologist, and that is the open and declared enemy of what all of Scientology as well as Scientologists stand for. So,
understandably so. I think we talked about that before, where the two oldest professions I think we talked about, one is the doctor, the medical profession that convinces you that they need to help you heal your body. And then, of course, there's the religious component, that I referred to that says that, now I'm going to convince you that I need to, fix your soul. And then I think you added that third one in there, which you just talked through, which is the psychiatry. And, hey, I need to help fix your crazy brain. So, yeah, those three right there are spokes that have done a lot of harm to society in general.
Yeah,
definitely.
And there's even a much darker avenue that we do a lot of exposés on, such as there's a lot of evidence that has been collected by the church involving what's called pain drug hypnosis. We have created an acronym in my religion, or L. Ron Hubbard created an acronym called PDH, pain drug hypnosis. And what happens is that a lot of these crazy shooters and a lot of these crazy psychopathic weird events that you see out in society, according to our exposés and according to our religious beliefs and what we do, those people are actually manufactured on purpose through pain drug hypnosis, through essentially dark psychiatry. And they're actually hypnotic commands that are installed in these particular individuals to actually go out and commit these heinous acts. And they oftentimes, when you start to understand, in Dianetics, he talks about black Dianetics, and he breaks down how some of these things work as well in Dianetics. Not that we're supposed to be using them, but he's a guy who believes that things should be spoken about and things should be left on the table. They're better off on the table than in the darkness, even if they are themselves very evil. And black Dianetics, you can actually use Dianetics in a way to do that kind of harm on someone, and you can actually produce a PDH victim. And so that whole thing is also one of the reasons why Dianetics and Scientology is very heavily attacked. And the reason why is because during a PDH, one of the things that's very, very common, and we have special technology, auditing technology called PDH handling and detection, where we can actually pull up PDH and we can actually audit PDH. And what happens is there's always a forgetter mechanism that's actually entered in hypnotically into a PDH victim. And that command often involves things like shh, or involves things like, and I'm not trying to stimulate people on the show. You'll never remember me. You'll forget my name. You'll never remember my face. Blah blah blah. And there's a special auditing technology where even though there are forgetter mechanisms entered into the PDH, we can actually cut through those mechanisms. We can annihilate those mechanisms, and we can actually pull up that information through auditing. So auditing is the antithesis to PDH, because as far as I'm concerned, auditing is the only technology that can break through PDH and actually locate the individual who's creating the situation and committing these crimes on the individual.
Man, it's cool. It's fascinating, man. It really
Yeah.
is.
So that is the overall breakdown. So there's a lot more, obviously, to talk
Yeah.
about. But again, I just wanted to start this off. I wanted it to be a short thing. Whatever. It's 2.5 hours long. Whatever. It's all good. And this, again, the whole point of this is just to be clear that the church, as an entity, is not involved in any of my research. It's not involved in anything that I'm doing. Just because I'm a Scientologist does not mean that Scientology as a group or as a unit is involved or not involved or anything else. There is no involvement by the church at all. This is entirely of my own free will. This is entirely my own situation. My own personal situation with the church is not something I'm going to get into on this show at all. And the thing is that there's a lot of my previous training, and there's a lot of aspects of me being a Scientologist that, had I not done that training and had I not done those things and had I not gone through the experiences that I've gone through, including the bigotry, massive bigotry that I've experienced, I don't think that I would be able to do what I'm doing with the legal stuff and the legal processes. Massive word clearing technology is very, very useful. I use it all the time, every day. My communication training and upper indoctrination training, routine training on the communication is extremely important for all the horse shit and the bar card shuffle and everything else that we have to go through to get anyone to answer any questions. It's like
Yeah.
the amount of repeating the same question and the amount of bullshit that we have to deal with just to get anyone to answer any questions requires military level training. Probably more so than almost anywhere else. So I use all of my training and all of my technology that I have learned for myself as an individual person, not officially connected to the religion in any way, officially or unofficially. And again, like I said at the beginning, because we're going to take a break here now, and then we're going to come back to go over your cases. None of this is being told as a defensive mechanism at all for either myself or Joey.
Yeah.
This is simply an informational dump so that you can make a decision for yourself. If you do not feel comfortable because of the information that we have divulged in this particular show, then you may leave. Anyone who is behaving in a degrading way or communicating in a degrading way, you will be banned forever. That's not the point of this. If you do wish to leave because of this information, then please do so quietly. If you don't, then I will make it quiet. Okay, just to be clear. Anything else you want to add, Joey?
No, it is fascinating, and same thing. My beliefs. I think you know a lot of my beliefs. We've had several conversations over many hours every week. This is not untypical of our conversations. 2.5 hours going in, so we usually go on for a long time. I have mosquito bites all over my legs because I'll sit outside and smoke a cigar or whatever while we're having a conversation about taking over the world and fighting all the evil forces. But just as you've been crafted, through your life journey and stuff, part of that being in Scientology, which again, I say that's fascinating, and I've got to think on it for a while here too. That's a lot of information that you just threw out for everybody, but it's the same thing for me over here. My belief system is very well established at 54. It's unlikely it's going to be changed, but I'm very open to listening to everything, and I hope everybody else that's watching this is too. You just had two guys come from two different angles that, it's something. We have a goal, I think it is, that we share, which is finding the truth in everything we do. I can 100% say that about you and I both. And I think that's what we were drawn to each other. And, just getting into that story is kind of amazing in itself, how we came across each other's paths. I reached out to you on Instagram after I saw one of your videos, the one where you were crowning the Amex. And I'm like, holy shit, man, I'm taking on Amex right now, but I'm 2 years down the road, the same level of research that you've done in your life studies and everything. And it's amazing, how you purport it and how you share it. I've done the same thing over here very quietly with the litigation process. And that's where we're getting ready to go through one piece of that. But when I saw you talking about Amex, and then I said, well, I'm here now. It's like, you probably get 1,000 of these. I get a lot of them too, where some dumbass reaches out to you and says, hey man, I can help. Yeah, right. So I just sent you a little message and says, hey man, I'm here. I'll help you. And that's where we started, and that's where we're at now. Yeah, it's been a really good journey, and we've shared a lot. We have a few people now that we're working with, which is wonderful. So we're kind of learning. This is brand new for me, except your argument is definitely brand new for me. But the argument that
Brand
you're
new
getting
for
ready,
everybody.
so the one that you're going to see that I call a win for me is, pursuant to one of the statutes, at least as it's related to credit. I feel very comfortable in that space, just like you feel very comfortable in the state national space. I mean, I'm there. I know everything about 15 USC 1681 and 1692 to do well. And I tested that out like you've tested a lot of things. I tested it out one on myself, and I did very well in a 10-month stretch. I could have lowered that learning curve down a lot, but I wanted to be an asshole at some point. About in the middle of the litigation, I added a bunch more defendants. I sued, as you'll see, the CEO, the president, and a few board members too, other than the organization. So I wanted to test it and take on some other people. So I took on some friends, and then ultimately took on some clients, and it's the same process. And as you well know, through your studies and everything, it resonated with you quite quick. Evidence. It's all about evidence, man. That's the only way you can't be defeated, because you're going to find out really quick that there's going to be a world of hearsay, and I'm sure we'll talk through that. It's a world of hearsay that you and I can't, compete in. These guys have done it all. It's like you would have the top level Scientologists. They are the top level in the hearsay world, and they're great at it. So the other thing you have against you is what's called presumptions, which you know very well. The court is going to presume that what they're telling them is true until you show them otherwise. So when you learn the very basics, and then you start learning, as of all people, word clearing, shall and must. Those are your two best friends in courts, man. And it means mandatory, and there's no discretion that can sidestep that, yet they do. It may, as another word, may means that they can if they want to. So what you'll find on a lot of the rules and a lot of the laws, it's especially the rules, the court rules, whether it's the big boy rules or it's the local rules, you're going to see a lot of shalls and musts, and then you're going to see them acting completely the opposite of that. So a lot of people that get in and get the shit kicked out of themselves, it's a scam, it's all this, that, and the other. It's just because you don't understand the process. It's actually very, very, very simple to win a court case, as crazy as that might sound. But yet you'll get in there, and if you don't know how to properly carry yourself, you don't know the appellate process, you don't know all of those things, then they're going to walk right over you, man. And the bar cards, as you find out very quick, they're all about billable hours. So the two clowns that you see right now talking to you, I mean, they love us. They may appear that they don't, but they do, because we're getting them a lot of billables right now. So, just fighting us and duking it out and saying things like sovereign citizen movement and vapor money, they're great at bringing on, like you said earlier, Brandon, all these crazy, noisy arguments coming from nowhere. And so anyway,
we've only had sovereign citizen once. We've only gotten that once. We got that from Susan on the first case. We haven't gotten that anymore. I'm surprised. I'm actually shocked.
It's in mine. I mean, if we could.
I just can't believe it's not in our. I mean, we're getting vapor money theory left and right. That's the one we're getting. We're not getting sovereign citizen. We're getting vapor money theory.
They jumped on my Amex case where I didn't even know they knew you and I knew each other. Remember I showed you that order where they put it in where Mr. Kimbrough is with Brandon, who purports to be the king pickle of an amnesty coalition. It's stupid stuff.
The
I
best. It's
responded.
the
Yeah, I
best.
responded like that. I don't know what you mean by sovereign citizen. I know what they're trying to mean, but it sounds very defamatory. I mean, I don't know what you guys are
Oh,
trying
they
to do
love
here.
that. They're
So
just trying
yeah,
to anything they can. It's like let's not talk about the facts. Let's talk about let's just
right.
destroy the reputation. They're like the media. They're like CNN. Oh, that's basically the same thought process. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
All right, so we're gonna take a break here, and then when we come back, we're going to get popping. Okie dokie.
All right.